Hey, everybody. You are listening and watching to the We Are Rizin podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. My co-host partner, Jay Christian Gary, is in parts unknown right now. He is incognito. I have no idea where he is. But with us, we have a very special guest. We have the walking weapon, Josh Alexander, who will be competing at Josh Barnett's Bloodsport on October 11th. You can see the show on FITE TV, and he's wrestled for AAW, Ring of Honor, Impact. I can't think of the place. It's more. I think you've wrestled almost everywhere to some degree. I'm trying to think of places where you have not wrestled at this point, but you've wrestled almost everywhere. Yeah, appreciate you taking your time out to talk to us, Josh. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, happy to be here. I'm pretty sure it's like everywhere but GCW and WWE right now. So
okay, so it's like very
like
small.
that would be the
very
two
small at this point.
that are left out, but that's all going to change October 11th. So.
Oh yes. So just curious to know, just tell us about how you've been during this whole pandemic. How you been coping?
I'm as good as can be, as good as anybody is. I'm lucky enough to be a contracted wrestler with Impact, so at least I get to wrestle every so often when there was no indies. Now indies are starting to pick up a little bit, and with the proper precautions and everything, we get to do a few shows here and there, like the Collective coming up in October, and hopefully things can get back to normal sooner than later. But it has to be done responsibly, of course. So. I'm doing good.
I gotta give credit to Impact. They put on some really great shows. I guess you could call it the pandemic era of wrestling. They put on some really, really great shows, and they really adapted very well to the whole no audience setting. They really have done very well. So congrats to them for doing great work.
So it's a weird time that we're all going to look back on, and we're going to like tell our kids about it one day. Like, we had to shut down the world for nearly a year or 2 years or however long it's going to take. And like, just to say that you were still doing your job during that time, and you could show them, this is going to be logged into history. So it's nuts, but like everybody has to adapt and keep pushing forward.
Out of all the matches you've had in Impact during the pandemic era, which one are you most happy or proud of?
I would probably say the first Motor City Machine Guns versus the North match, the one where we lost the belt. That would probably be the best one. It's but like I would rank the tag match against Ken Shamrock and Sami Callihan up there as well, because that was live for pay-per-view, which is a different vibe altogether.
And what do you think about the whole no audience aspect? Was that something you had to get used to when it first happened, or did you enjoy it? Was it something that you enjoyed the challenge of not having that energy from the audience?
Yeah, I'm into like having challenges and a little bit of pressure put on me. So this has like been I'm not going to say it's a new thing, because I've had the good fortune or misfortune of wrestling in front of nearly no fans on a lot of indie shows over the past 16 years. And as a wrestling trainer, I spent a year doing practice matches with my students in front of nobody. So there's a certain pace and a cadence to a professional wrestling match that after getting so much experience, it's just like muscle memory, it. So it's not as much of a challenge as much as it is a challenge to get yourself hyped up and a little bit of adrenaline in that situation when you don't have a live crowd to perform in front of.
Gotcha. So let's talk about, you'll be wrestling in front of an audience this time with Josh Barnett's Bloodsport. Your opponent will be Davey Boy Smith Jr. Are you familiar with DB Smith Jr.? What do you think of him as a wrestler?
I'm very familiar with him. My trainer trained in the Heart Dungeon, and he was a class or two before Davey Boy Smith Jr. and TJ and Natty all came in and started training. But they were obviously around there as younger people. Like, they were probably like 12 years old when he trained. But I followed everything from the Canadian independent scene since I started 16 years ago. I'm very invested in the Canadian independent wrestling scene, and Davey Boy Smith, coming out of Calgary, representing Canada all over the world, he's been like one of the top names that came out of Canada. So I've followed his career pretty closely. And I'm excited to get in the ring with him. It's the first time we've ever had a singles match. I've been on shows with him before. We've interacted, but I've never had this opportunity. And I'm pretty happy that Josh Barnett picked one of the biggest challenges to give me on my first Bloodsport show.
So how do you feel? This is gonna be your first Bloodsport show. It's knockout or submission, or if it goes 30 minutes or 15 minutes or however long the time limit is, it's a draw. How do you feel that this is as far as I know, is it the first time you've ever been in a wrestling match where it's those kind of stakes? That's the only way you can finish.
Yeah, it definitely is the first time, but it's something I've been itching to do for like 10 years now. I remember when Evolve first started, they were talking about doing win-loss records and having it being the sport of professional wrestling. What they were describing was something that I think Bloodsport is now. But then by the time I saw Evolve, it didn't really seem to be anything more than just another indie show with a couple guys that could do that style, but mixed in. But it really wasn't what I imagined it would be until I saw Bloodsport, where they had the no ropes and it had that Kumite Mortal Kombat to it. That I really got excited. And I was just like, I need to be a part of this. Like from Matt Riddle's Bloodsport to Josh Barnett's, I've watched all of them, and I've been jealous that I haven't been able to be a part of them. And I'm just really, really pumped that I get to show what I can do now, because I'm someone that really, over the past 16 years, like, to hammer it home, like every time I step in the ring, I want people to know that this is a contest. I want people to walk away from my match. And I've always said it, like, I'm not going to sell tickets for the kids. I'm the one that's going to make the father that brings his son to the show come back, because every time he's in the crowd and he sees me wrestle, he goes, holy shit, that guy's hitting that guy for real. There's no way you can fake that. And like, that's the thing I want to do when I wrestle. So that's what Bloodsport is. So if I'm going to challenge myself to go to a different level like that, this is the perfect place to do it.
Well, yeah, it's interesting that you talked about, and we earlier talked to Alexander James about that. Just like it's 4 or 5 years ago. You're the type of style that Bloodsport emulates. A lot of the wrestlers who wrestle that type of style, that wasn't a thing kind of like 4 or 5 years ago. There was kind of just like this, I guess, fast-paced, action-oriented, move off the top rope type of style that was kind of like all over the indie scene. But now it's almost as if everything has been done. So now it's kind of going back to its pro wrestling is going back to its pro wrestling roots. Do you see that happening with the indie scene, where it's kind of like, since everything was done, now it's becoming simple, it's becoming the way that indie wrestling is going?
I get what you were trying to say here, and I think I disagree. I agree in the sense that this stuff that's happening now is making a return by, this is what makes the fans most interested, or really catches the fans' attention, because they're so over like saturated in wrestling with that high flying style, with those dives, with like, everybody's a cruiserweight now, pretty much. Everybody wrestles like a cruiserweight, and it's them trying to one up each other. And like, I get in a ring, I'm not going to do a 450 or shooting star press. So like, I concentrate on making that punch or these forearms really like hit home, so people get invested in my match, and like try to add different storytelling that way. But like, when I got into wrestling, it was like 1997, 1998, when I was like 10 years old. And then I fell out of wrestling a little bit, but then I discovered TNA when it first started. And through that, I found people like Loki and Samoa Joe. And these are guys that I think really were like trailblazers to bring this style back. And through them, I found Ring of Honor. And through Ring of Honor, I found Bryan Danielson and Nigel McGuinness and all these guys that like, they had like a mixture of MMA before anybody else really did in pro wrestling. And it's spurned the careers of people like Zack Sabre Jr. and Kyle O'Reilly and all these guys that kind of mix, whether it be jiu-jitsu or kickboxing or something, in with their style. And it's a more hard-hitting style. And I think it's just like gone through the years. There's these guys that are really good at it and have perfected it. But it's guys like, I think it was people like Loki and Samoa Joe that really, brought it through then back after the 90s, when, everybody was just more interested in something else, a different style.
Mm-hmm. Did you say you're a wrestler? You're a trainer yourself now? You train students right now?
I had a school in Canada for the last year. I shut it down right before COVID, just because I was so busy. And like my whole year was booked solid, and I knew I wouldn't have time to see my kids if I had the school open. So I shut it down, and then a week later, the worldwide shutdown happened. The world stopped spinning. So I
Hmm.
was just lucky timing wise that I had closed it up when I did.
I'm curious to know, have you ever had to tell students, that maybe want to do too much in a ring, you know, slow down, keep it simple. As the old saying, keep it simple, stupid. Have you ever had to tell students that because they kind of want to do all that stuff while you're trying to teach them just basic fundamentals of pro wrestling?
Every single day. Anytime I would have a new student start, the first thing they want to learn is a power bomb, or they want to get up on the top rope and jump off. And my school was run the same way I was trained, which was very strict.
Hmm.
And you have to learn how to walk or crawl before you can walk, and then walk before you can run. And if you can't crawl, you're not going to start learning how to walk. You're certainly not going to start learning how to run. Like, basic fundamentals are everything. And I'm not even talking about like a punch or a kick. I'm talking about a lockup or a hold, or even just your footwork as you circle the ring. Like, that's the most important part, because if you look at the basis of any of the great professional wrestlers, and I can list them all, from like my personal favorites being like Fit Finley and Eddie Guerrero, and the list goes on. But like, there's no holes in their game because they're so good at all the basics. And like, once you have the basics, everything else falls into place. And like, that's one thing that I think is like sorely lacking in professional wrestling now. You have a lot of guys that can come in and they can do a standing 450 splash, or they can run the ropes and do all these crazy gymnastics, which is fantastic. But then they can't do a lockup that's going to convince anybody they're locking up. So like, I think it's very important, because the first thing you see in a match is a lockup or circling the ring to like have a contest. And if you can't convince people you're having a contest, then you're not really convincing them and trying to suspend that disbelief of a wrestling match. So it really doesn't matter what you do later on.
Hmm. With schools, you brought up the Heart Dungeon before, also your school as well. I'm just curious to know, do you think that's going to be a detriment maybe 20 years from now in the pro wrestling world? Because I'm trying to think off the top of my head, who can like teach that stuff, and I can't think of a lot of people that can, as opposed to maybe 30 years ago. So do you think that could be a negative impact on the pro wrestling world?
I think the sheer amount of wrestling schools in North America alone is a detriment to the wrestling business for sure. Because even in my own province of Canada, there's, within a drive of me, there's probably 5 schools. And as far as reputable trainers go, like, if somebody's going to be amazing, they're going to be amazing regardless of who trains them. I don't like I trained in a backyard school for the first year, and I was just, through studying tapes and watching the way Eddie Guerrero moved his feet when he did a belly to back suplex, I taught myself that. But I had to be retrained on all the basics, and that's why I got retrained by my trainer Johnny Devine, the guy from the Heart Dungeon. And like, he taught me the best basics possible, because I knew everything else. I knew how to execute moves nicely by studying tape, but like, I needed those basics. And like, there's so many people that don't know that, yes, that have schools, but there are so many reputable schools out there that people just have to want to be good. And they have to recognize that this stuff's important, and they have to seek out those schools. Like, you can't tell me that you're going to get more out of such and such indie wrestler school that you pay maybe $1,000 to be a student at, instead of saving up your money and paying $3,000 to go get trained by like John Gresham, who's the best wrestler in North America, in my opinion. So like, you know what I mean? There are people out there training, and like, John would be my number one pick in America to be trained by, probably,
Hmm.
that you can learn this stuff from, that are carrying this stuff on.
Hmm. And let's go back to your Bloodsport match. So how do you prepare for a match like this, where it's knockout or submission? Especially you have an amateur background? Do you see to take the fight to the ground? Do you want to keep it standing? How do you foresee the fight going to your success?
Uh, I am. I'm not going to call myself tough, but I have, through the years, endured and persevered through many injuries and many bumps and bruises. And I've gone against big, strong, physical wrestlers. And I've had my ass kicked a whole bunch of times, and it's never stopped me. When it was announced that it was me against Davey Boy Smith Jr., It's like you looked at the card and it was just like, okay, if I get homicide, maybe I can take him to the ground. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna throw punches with him or anything, but I'll take him to the ground. Maybe I can finish it there. But then you get Davey Boy Smith Jr. and he's 6'5", 265 pounds, and he's a super athlete. He can punch, he can kick. He's probably just as fast as me. He's definitely stronger than me. He's bigger than me. So like, I'm not gonna roll around on the ground with him because I'm gonna get trapped. So I'm gonna like, I have to be smart. But I'm sure at the end of the day, it's going to come down to how much heart I have because I'm just going to have to outlast him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Just for anybody,
which is
sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say it's exciting for me because I like competition. I don't mind getting hit, and I part of my thing is like I want to see how hard I can get hit and keep going because I haven't found that guy that can stop me yet.
Mm-hmm.
As many times as I've been in the ring with some of the best in the world, so it's going to be interesting at Bloodsport.
Mm-hmm. And just for anybody who wants to know how tough you are, they should look up the story. Well, what happened to you when you were Ring of Honor, where you broke your neck, I believe, in the tag match, and then but you still continued the match, I believe, right? I think that's how it went.
Yeah, both neck injuries happened in matches. I've never called a match early. Ever. I tore my pec in a match at the start of the match and I wrestled for 20 minutes. I tore my bicep in a match. Halfway through, I finished the match. Stopping a match has never been an option for me. Like, I've always been pretty good at recognizing, yeah, I'm hurt, but I can keep going. And like, knock on wood, there's never been anything that's completely kept me out of it. And yeah, and yeah, it's just I kind of embrace, like, that's what pro wrestling is to me. My heroes, like, I don't think Fit Finley would stop a match because he tore his bicep if he could still move his arm.
Mm.
You know what I mean? So like, I'm always trying to like be like my heroes, and like it's just, maybe it's stubborn, maybe it's stupid, but you know, call me stubborn and stupid. I'm gonna keep doing it. It's working for me so far.
Do you know? So in these matches, did you know you were injured, or was this something that you discovered after the fact, after the match is over, the adrenaline had wore off, or did you know like in the middle of the match? Oh God, yeah, I tore my pec. Better keep going.
Yeah, like I think I have the clip somewhere, but like I threw a clothesline, I hit the guy, and you see my arm fall, and you see me start rubbing my chest, and I look down, and like, if I don't know if you can see it, there's like a hole here,
Mm-hmm.
and I saw the hole, and I tore my pec, and I was like, well, we got 20 minutes left, and like my bicep, same thing. I don't know if you can see, there's a giant space here, but like I tore my bicep, and I was like, oh, I got to get in the ring because I know there's a springboard Hurricanrana coming, and if I'm not there for it, he's not going to be able to do anything. And there's other people relying on me, so I just took it with one arm and like moved on with the match. Like I've always worked around it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I was just curious to know.
But like,
Sorry,
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say you're the guest. You go first.
No, like pain isn't a, like, I know I'm in pain. I've been in the most excruciating pain any human can feel. I crushed a vertebrae in my neck, which takes all the nerves and smashes them together. And you're smashing the most important nerves in your body together. And I was in excruciating pain for 2.5 weeks before the nerves died. So going through that now, like tearing my pec was literally nothing in comparison. So like, after like, it's just not gonna stop.
Mm. I'm just curious to know, do you communicate that to either the referee or to your tag partner or maybe even to the opponents? And do you just keep it to yourself? Just, don't change anything, as the match goes on, so that, it may, because, if word gets out during the match, something may have, the match could become slower. It could lose the momentum. So I'm just curious, do you keep it to yourself when those injuries happen, just so it doesn't interrupt the flow of the match?
Yeah, absolutely. Both my pec tear and my bicep tear. My bicep tear, I turned to Ethan Page and went, I tore my bicep, and he goes, oh shit, what are we gonna do? I'm like, I'll be fine, don't worry about it. And like, but like in the pec tear, it was a singles match, and I knew I didn't want to tell my opponent because I didn't want him to worry about it because I knew I could get through the match, and there was nothing that was gonna stop me. Because like, every time I step foot in a ring, I want to have the best match on that show. I want to have the very best match I can have, and like, it's like stubborn and stupid. Like, I don't want to take away that opportunity from myself by like ruining it and saying, hey, I'm hurt, let's just like go home early. Because every time I step foot in the ring, that's an opportunity for me to create something. That's like where I get the juice for like my whole reason for living. Like wrestling saved my life. This is like all I feel like I'm good at. This is all I've ever wanted to do. This is the only thing that's fulfilled me. So like I'm not going to take it away just because I have a little bit of pain. I'm always going to go for broke every time.
We asked a lot of the competitors last year about this, and I believe it was Jordan Grace who posted on Twitter that she considers wrestling an art and not a sport. I just want to know, not necessarily that if you disagree with her or agree with her, but just what wrestling is to you. Do you consider it a sport? Do you consider art? A little bit of both, or it's something entirely different?
I consider it, yes. I'm like a little bit of both. I'm not gonna argue with people that come up to me and ask me if it's real or fake or anything like that. I'm not gonna get offended by how they talk about professional wrestling, because everyone can have their opinion and they're entitled to it. As far as like Jordan Grace and other people calling themselves performance artists rather than professional wrestlers, that's where I took a little bit of offense. And in AAW, after I won the Jim Lynam Memorial Cup, I stood in the ring. I honored the man that passed away and the reason for the tournament. And I looked at Eddie Kingston, who I just wrestled for 25 minutes. And I said, there's a lot of people calling themselves performance artists out there in the world. And I think it's doing a disservice to all people like me and Eddie Kingston, because we're fucking professional wrestlers. Because I don't think people like my heroes, like I just talked about, would want to like disgrace themselves by calling them anything but professional wrestlers. Like it's like, to nitpick it and try to say you're something else just because you think wrestling's different. Like this is what it's been forever. So what's any different than a professional wrestler? You want to call yourself an actor just because you want to be different? I don't understand it. It makes no difference. We're all the same thing, but you just want to call yourself something else for kicks. Like I don't think they actually believe.
I was gonna ask, like, why you think they would? And I'm not gonna. It's very hard. I want to ask it in a way, but I don't also want you to put some words in somebody else's head or coming out of their mouth when they're not saying it. But I'm just curious to know why you think somebody would prefer to call themselves a performance artist and not professional wrestler. I guess that's that whole thing: sports entertainment versus pro wrestling. But at least we kind of know why WWE does that. They have a reason. But when it comes to performance artists, you kind of think of like, I don't know, the guy who does this on the street, or a juggler.
A mime.
Yeah, the mime. That's it, the mime, or a juggler, fire eater. That to me is performance art. But I'm just trying to. Why do you think someone would rather prefer that term than a pro wrestler? Do you think that pro wrestling has a negative connotation to it when, I guess, to some people, or is it just not as marketable, maybe?
I think you probably hit the nail on the head with the like the marketable thing, or it has a bad connotation to it or something like that. But to me, it's like, I think it's just that they don't want to say this is a sport because it's not a real competition at the end of the day. Like the cat's out of the bag. Vince McMahon said it in the early 90s in a courtroom in New York City. Like, this is predetermined. So we're not really competing for a winner's purse or anything like that. But like that doesn't change what the job is, what the title of the job is. It doesn't have to. And like it didn't change immediately then, but now some 30 years later, people want to call themselves performance artists instead because we're not really competing. No, but our job is to give the illusion of competition. And that's what pro wrestling is. Pro wrestling is suspending everybody's disbelief that bought a ticket there, because everybody that shows up to a wrestling show for the most part knows what the trick is, but they don't want you to give it to them. They don't want you to show them the trick. They want you to still fool them. Like, I know magic is fake. I know that like Buddy with the cards is just like sticking it to his hand or doing something, you know what I mean? But I don't want to see it. I want to be fooled because I want to have the illusion. And I think wrestling fans are the exact same. So why would a magician change his name to, like I'm a trickster or something just because that's what he's actually doing? Like, that's the disagreement I have with it.
And what one of the last questions I had before we just go back into the Bloodsport show, on the same week you're gonna have a whole bunch of other shows. I'm just curious to know, are you actually wrestling on any other shows that week for the collective?
Yeah, I'm Black Label. I'm wrestling Layla Hirsch. I
Oh,
have another intergender match at Freelance. I'm challenging for their championship against Kylie Ray. And I have a tag match at Glory Pro, myself and Ethan Page, the North, against Alex Zane and Blake Christian.
okay. So
So it's a stacked weekend.
yeah. I'm very actually. I mean, you just mentioned. I guess. Are you okay with intergender matches? I know it's like a hot topic among wrestling fans. It seems like there's no middle ground. People love it or hate it. Uh, I'm guessing that you see it as a positive part of the sport. Unless I'm wrong, feel free to correct me.
No, no, I've heard the people in the past make like claims that it doesn't suspend disbelief and that it's completely unbelievable that a girl would make a man sell and all this stuff. And like, I understand it, but there is ways to make anything make sense if you actually know how to perform, put on a wrestling match. You can still suspend disbelief, whether there's size difference or gender difference or anything. Like it's silly to me. I always tell people that want to book me in intergender matches. For the most part, my record in intergender matches, I'm not very good at them. But the ones that have been good have been ridiculously good. So like because I'm not going to change who I am. I'm not going to hit any less hard than I usually would, whether it's like Davey Boy Smith Jr. or it's Layla Hirsch, who's a foot and a half shorter and 140 pounds lighter. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So like they just have to fight back. They have to bring all the fight to me because of the size difference. And when they do, it's magic.
Hmm.
And I think anything can make sense if you're good enough. So yeah, I
Hmm.
mean, we'll see if I'm good enough at those two shows at the Collective.
Uh-huh. So actually, so are those matches going to be after Bloodsport or before Bloodsport?
Bloodsport's my final show of the weekend. So
Oh, okay, okay,
uh, yeah,
okay. So then those shows are probably happening on Thursday or Friday, I believe. I think, right? Or maybe.
uh, I think Bloodsport's a Sunday, right? Or is it a Saturday?
I have it on my calendar as Saturday, October 11th.
Yeah, Saturday. I have both those intergender matches are on the Friday,
I apologize. I'm so
and I
sorry.
have
Sunday, October 11th. My apologies. My apologies.
yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, both my intergender matches are Saturday, and the tag match is Sunday morning, and then Bloodsport's in the like 5 p.m. slot, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
later on Sunday. I have no shows on the Friday.
Okay, gotcha. So actually, so about that, so with Bloodsport being your last show, obviously you would want. I mean, you're going to be already wrestling a number of matches. So just like, how do you like just pace yourself? No, just so you don't come into. But I know, you're used to dealing with injuries in your matches, but ideally you want to come in probably as close to 100% for Bloodsport, especially with Davey Boy Smith Jr. You don't want to go in there 70% because then it's could be possibly a short night with them. So how do you with the other matches? How do you plan to pace yourself so that yes, you can basically, I guess, survive the week to make it to Bloodsport in the end, and hopefully get probably what would be one of the biggest wins of your career.
Well, my moniker being the walking weapon was given to me by Ethan Page because I'm not going to pace myself. I never pace myself. I'm too stupid or stubborn not to. But it's because he books Alpha One Wrestling in Canada, and for the better part of a year, I was double champion on his show, and I defended both belts every single show. And then he'd have a tournament, and I would be the guy that goes from the opening round all the way to the finals, whether I win or lose. And I've done probably 40 tournaments, and that's the way I do it. I'm used to wrestling several times in one day,
Hmm.
is what I'm saying, and I never pace myself. Like I I would be like it would be hard to say that somebody else works harder than me at like cardio and everything else. So persevering past like a few bumps and bruises and some soreness, like that's not going to be a problem. I'd like to say I'm ready. I have to be confident enough to say I'm ready. I'm definitely not going to pace myself though.
And actually, speaking of tournaments, Bloodsport earlier this year, for the whole COVID fucked up everything, they were going to have the Gotch Robinson tournament. Uh, Curious to know if they bring that back. You want to be a part of that?
100%. 100%. I will find out on October 11th, though I'm going to be back because I'm going to try to make a statement against the biggest guy in Bloodsport. you know, if I do, I'm sure they'll have to bring me back. So I would love it. I'm a huge fan of Billy Robinson.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And with that being said, I know you mentioned the show that you're working on that week for the collective and also for Black Label and for Glory Pro. Do you have any other shows coming up in the future that you can mention? Obviously, you have your stuff of Impact, but anything else that you can talk about currently?
There's an Alpha One show in Canada. I don't think it's going to be anywhere. They put it up on Impact Plus like a week after the show. But yeah, there's small Canadian indies running. We have to run with like, you know, limited crowd size. Obviously, it's all outdoor shows. So I have that in between that and some Impact dates. But other than that, I think everything's going to dry up soon because you can't run indoor shows in Canada. So you know, snow is going to fly soon. Nobody's wrestling outside.
Okay. Oh, actually, I better ask this as well because if I don't, he's going to be really pissed off. One of our listeners, Gentleman's Combat on Twitter, has been asking of this for all of our people we've been talking to for Bloodsport. If you have been watching any Volcon matches to prepare for Bloodsports.
I'm sorry, I have not. I actually watched some Billy Robinson today, and I watched some Victor Zangief.
Oh, so, great! From
the Zangief. Yeah, like he'd be like the style that I would like aspire to be. Like I've watched him for years, but then you know I'm obviously in there with somebody that trying to suplex him is going to be way more difficult than you know a Homicide or somebody else. So we'll see.
Plus, also he's one of the most influential.
I'm growing out the back.
He's one of the most influential.
No, I said.
He's indirectly one of the most influential pro wrestlers of all time since they named the Street Fighter character after him. So, you know, he's no, in terms of like notoriety, he's actually, I think I can make an argument he's up there with like Rock, Stone Cold, because everybody knows who Zangief from Street Fighter is. And if you go like, oh no, it's based on Victor Zangief from the UWFI, they'll be like, oh wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, but nobody knows who he is. Like once you show them a YouTube clip, like I didn't know about him until Drew Gulak was just like, you need to check this guy out. Like 8 years ago, and when I checked him out, I'm like, oh my god, I have to find everything for this guy because he's amazing. I was just saying, I'm growing my back and chest hair out for it just to make him proud. So.
Maybe you can use that during the match. You know, if he tries to do like a hip toss on you from the back, just rub that hair on the back, and you know maybe that could momentarily get him off his game.
It's Velcro for the belly to belly, man. That's it.
Yeah. And right now for Impact, how can people? It's on Access TV every Tuesday, I believe, right?
Yeah, Tuesday nights at 8:00 on Access TV in America, FITE Network in Canada, and it's live on Twitch. If you have internet, you can watch Impact for free every Tuesday night if you have none of those channels. So
I remember I heard the Twitch channel got suspended I think it got suspended momentarily, so I wasn't so sure if they were still doing Twitch because Twitch is I have friends who stream on Twitch, and Twitch can be a nightmare sometimes. So I wasn't so sure if they were still on Twitch.
They were suspended for a week because of a nipple slip that occurred. So
yeah,
it's true. So
if you ever go on Twitch, there's some camp video gamer girls who show a lot more. So I'm not surprised that they would get mad at a little nipple slip on a wrestling show. Also, before you go, I just want to give you an opportunity to say whatever you want to about to Davey Boy Smith Jr. in case you ever listen to this audio about your match coming up at Bloodsport. The floor is yours.
I mean, I am honored to be put in the ring with somebody that has the pedigree and the history and the legacy, and somebody that works as hard at his craft to be one of the best wrestlers in the world. I look forward to testing myself against him, and I'm just going to say when my back's against the wall, when the pressure's at the most, that's usually when I rise to the occasion. So I know he's going to bring it at me, and I'm just not going to stop. So it's going to be awesome. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have to earn my place in Bloodsport.
Mm-hmm. It is a unique family, wrestling family to be a part of. Not everybody gets to go to Bloodsport, so it's kind of like it's about Rushmore for some people who we talk to because it's just very unique.
Yep.
And I also want to give you.
I'm one of them, absolutely.
I also want to give you the opportunity to plug all of your social media, Pro Wrestling Tees, Teesprings, or anything else that you can plug. Floor is yours.
Just at walking_weapon on Twitter and Instagram. Through that, in my bios, you can find my Teespring, which there's a bunch of designs, and just keep following my career and supporting. I appreciate it all.
Mm-hmm. And everybody can check out Josh Alexander versus Davey Boy Smith Jr. at Bloodsport, Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, October 11th. And you can watch on FITE.tv. Price is $19.99. And you can also see Josh wrestle for Glory Pro, Freelance. You said Freelance or Black Label Pro? I'm sorry.
Both.
Oh, both. I'm sorry. Both Black Label Pro and Freelance. It's going to be a great weekend of wrestling, and check out those shows along with the Bloodsport show on FITE TV. And Josh, thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to us. It's going to maybe be the most hard-hitting match of the show. So definitely going to be a barn burner, as they say, and on commentary and wrestling.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes,
thank you for having me.
We certainly are, and thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to us about it.
Anytime.
Take care. Bye-bye.